Hi there, welcome to the next episode of AI Guide to the Galaxy. My name is Oleg and I work with the DevRel team at Docker. Today we are in the real actual studio. We're here at the Docker Captain Summit in Istanbul, and it is my honor to introduce my next guest, who is a Docker Captain, Jonas from E2B. Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
It's great to be here. It's been 2 days of very productive conversations about Docker, Docker products, roadmaps, and we're taking this chance to record this video face-to-face. We'll see how it goes. Leave a comment if you think this is a great idea, and we should do it more often. So, recently, E2B and Docker announced this partnership. And, well, our viewers mostly are familiar with Docker and Docker products. So maybe, can you tell me a little bit about what E2B is and what do you offer?
So E2B is an open source infrastructure for AI sandboxes. So if you want to run agents that need access to like a full operating system, and you want to do that securely and sandbox and isolated, that's what E2B is for.
Right. Sandboxes are a very hot topic nowadays. Everyone is doing them, from Cloudflare to all the coding assistant shipping some sort of guardrails in form of seatbelt or macOS and stuff like that. So E2B is E2B like a local sandbox, or is it the cloud machines?
It's cloud-based and it's full virtual machine. So the agent can get full access to a full Linux VM and it's all in the cloud. So you can also scale up like thousands of sandboxes in parallel.
That is awesome. I can imagine the effort that went into creating the infrastructure of that. Definitely not easy. This is very, very cool. So E2B provides the sandboxes, and well, Docker has a number of initiatives. Most notably for this partnership was the MCP catalog, the trusted catalog of MCP servers that you can plug and use from your AI assistants. And maybe the supplementing technologies like MCP Toolkit and the MCP Gateway. So can you maybe explain the partnership and what the integration is in a few words?
Yeah. So with the partnership, Docker has this amazing catalog of like pre-configured MCP servers with like all the configuration you need. And with the partnership, we bring the MCP servers that are already trusted and in the catalog to E2B sandboxes. So when you run an agent in a sandbox, the agent has like automatic access to all of those 200 MCP servers.
Right, awesome. When you run a sandbox, what does it mean? Can you maybe show an example? How do I, as a developer or as a person running my agent, how do I create the sandboxes? What's the experience look like?
So usually you would create a sandbox through an SDK that's either JavaScript or Python. And then when you create a sandbox, which is just sandbox.create here, you can configure a few different MCP servers. So here, this is fully typed. You could, for example, do exa, which is a search engine kind of, and then also the configuration is typed, and you can provide, for example, the API key for that.
Right. So Docker has this catalog of MCP servers, right, which are technically just Docker images with software that is an MCP server running inside them. And there is a surrounded technology, which is, in case of headless machines, is the MCP Gateway Docker image that acts as a configuration entry point and the proxy to the MCP servers.
Yes.
So when I provide this configuration, right? So this is the API to create sandboxes with E2B. When I provide this configuration, the E2B library will spin up the gateway within the sandbox.
Yes, that is correct.
Is it like completely within the sandbox, or is it an external?
Yeah, the gateway runs completely in the sandbox, so
Right.
Isolated in that. And then the MCP servers also run in the same sandbox.
Okay.
And the gateway is also accessible to the outside if you want, like authenticated, of course. So if you have an agent running locally, it could use the isolated MCP servers in a sandbox as well.
Right. Okay, doke. So let's look at this example. Walk me through this example more. So we configure in Sandbox and we create this, right? So that will send the commands to the cloud E2B premises and give me like a virtual machine and the connection to that, right?
Yeah. And this, because we configured MCP, this will also automatically start the gateway and like pre-pull the Docker images, for example, for those MCP servers.
This is very interesting, actually. So the Docker catalog is just a number of MCP catalog, sorry, those are Docker images. And then they don't have any particular configuration externally because it's the catalog resides and is sort of managed by the Toolkit or the MCP gateway, which, well, you configure them either from the user experiences like form or using environment properties and Docker secrets in the catalog in the gateway form, like when you just run containers. How do you get the API like that? Did you create it manually or?
So we take the catalog, which is like a huge YAML file, and then auto-generate the types of that. And then in the background, we map it back to the catalog. So what actually gets used in the end is the catalog.
Right.
But the catalog is quite complex. And like in Docker Desktop, it's also mapped to like a nicer UI. And here we just map it to a different.
Oh, that is awesome. So,
but it's a one-to-one mapping in the end.
Right. So like you get the API for both JavaScript and Python sort of for the price of one.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just take the catalog and then auto-generate everything.
That is awesome. Okay. And I can see you put Anthropic API key. So we're going to use Claude.
Yes. So here we just run Claude, like the actual Claude code inside the sandbox. And we add the MCP gateway here in the first command. So when you do sandbox.commands.run, this actually runs like a command in the sandbox.
Sort of like Docker exec.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
in the API form for the sandbox. Okay.
And then we can start, I need to wrap here. We then start Claude with a task here and the YOLO mode because we're in a sandbox and we don't really.
Yes. It cannot mess up our machine.
And in this case, we have a very simple use case where we just search for interesting research papers and then summarize it and turn it into like a white-coded summary in like an HTML page. And then, because again, we're in the sandbox, we can really do stuff we wouldn't do on our laptop. We can expose it as an like HTTP server here and like host a website. And I can run that. So I hope that actually works. So this will probably take however long Claude decides to do its research.
Right. Okay. So it created the MCP gateway.
Yes.
And it prints the URL for us. So
yes. So for example, if you have Claude Desktop running, you could also connect your Claude Desktop to the remote sandbox with the gateway running inside of it.
Right. I would need to provide the authorization token, but like I can connect to that from like external things. Okay. So now what is happening? So now Claude is processing our request and we configured the MCP gateway. So it has access to tools from the servers that we configured, which is the archive and
archive and DuckDuckGo. Just to have a search engine really.
Right. And then it will use those servers and generate us some information in the index.html page. And then we can access that because we spin up interactively a Python server.
Yeah. And that's, of course, something you would not really usually want to do.
This is the demo purposes demo. So you would probably make your Claude, write it to the database, and then you access it securely or put the files into your S3 bucket or anywhere else. Okay, this takes a little bit of time. Can you tell me, so here you have Claude within the sandbox.
Yes.
Do you package Claude by default, or is it something that just accidentally works here?
Yeah, so when you create, so sandboxes are created from templates, and templates are really like the root file system of the virtual machine. So you can create a new template and then install whatever you want in there. So this is example code of how you create a template. You can start from the MCP template, which already has the gateway installed and a few tools like npm Python is already installed in there. And then you can extend it however you want. So we have, for example, apt install. So if there's, for example, if you want to install curl, you would just add curl here.
Right.
Or if you want to clone a certain repository, you could do that here as well.
Right. And this is a template which is not the actual instance of the sandbox, but this is the file system
Yes.
sort of projection.
Yes.
So will be used
Yeah.
for starting the sandbox.
And each template has a name, and then when you create the actual sandbox, you just reference that name, and it's based on that. So in this example, everything would have curl installed, or if you do the
Right. So in sort of an analog in the Docker universe terms, this would be like sort of building a Docker image.
yes,
Except specifying the entry point, because the sandbox entry point is probably controlled by you.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also start commands, which is kind of like an entry point. So if you have a service that you want to start automatically, you can also do that.
Okay.
But this is very similar to Docker image, and we even have support to use Docker images as templates.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
you can create an E2B.docker file usually, and then this is converted to a template as well.
Do you like the API or Docker files more for creating templates?
The API, because it's better for like programmatic access.
Yeah.
So if you have a use case where you provide coding agents for your users, for example,
Yeah.
programmatic is usually like the better way.
Yeah, I agree. I have experience with test containers, so like it's very similar story there, which it's a open source library, and they expose programmatic API to configure and manage containers within Docker context. So I can totally see the appeal of running the API. Right. So we have the results from Claude.
So you can see it found an interesting paper, Foundations of Large Language Models.
Okay.
And then also did some research about the authors. And then, hopefully, if it worked, published it at this URL.
I think it says Sandbox closed successfully.
Yeah, okay, we were too slow. The sandbox had a lifetime of 5 minutes and we talked too long, so it's already gone. But I can run it again if you want.
Right. No, you don't have. Let's run. Let's show it. We're gonna edit it in post.
Yeah.
So I believe you that it works. I actually have seen it work. I've built a couple of examples. I've mostly tried Python myself to figure out pieces, which you know because you helped me debug issues there. But so I know that it works, and I know that you can expose those sandboxes over the internet if you want to like interactively sort of look for the demos. So you said you won't do this during the normal like usage of sandboxes. Well, like if you can share some details, like what is the common patterns how people use E2B sandboxes? Is it common to package AI assistants within the sandbox and run it as a sort of isolated cloud machine for the unit of computation, or do people connect from external AI assistants? What do you see happening, and also what do you personally think is a more interesting way going forward?
So I think one of the most common use cases is like the true coding agents that you want to run completely in the background. So for example, if you've seen Cursor Bugbot, which like partially runs code, or like Rabbit, which like does pull request reviews and like fixes code already, then usually like the agents run actually completely in the sandbox, just to have it fully isolated. But of course, there's also benefits to do it like partially in the sandbox, partially outside, because well, it's a bit easier to orchestrate probably if you run partially outside. And I didn't quite understand what you meant with the interesting.
But, so if you look at the homepage for E2B, with like there is a lot of examples here for technologies that you can connect if you scroll a little bit down, right? So we have there were some here, for example, right? And I understand that those could be synthetic examples, but if you click on the OpenAI, for example, right? So here which I assume is a classic example, you run OpenAI externally in your Python code, and then you connect it to Sandbox just to run the code.
Oh yeah, that is a very common use case as well. For example, a lot of the chat applications have some way of running code, right? Like if you give it a CSV file, you like figure out how many columns I have in there. They write Python code and then actually run the Python code. And then of course only like the actual code execution is in the sandbox.
Right.
And very short-lived usually. And this is like a major use case. and you can, yeah,
Right. So what I hear is there is no particular preference from the sort of user point of view. Like if they want to connect external clients,
yeah,
it's absolutely fine. If they want to put it into the sandboxes and have it to run at more like independent, longer end-to-end processes, that is also all good and fine.
I think it also depends of what do you want to isolate and what do you want to like protect against. Because in the end, like the sandboxes provide a lot of isolation. And
Right.
yeah.
This is very, very cool. I'm very, very happy with how this partnership turned out. It's really easy to configure the MCP servers. So I know that Docker MCP Toolkit recently added the remote server abilities. So like if you can connect to, for example, Notion server and provide you a token, but the Notion server is not run locally in the container, but it just connects to Notion API. Would that work with the integration like this as well?
That is already supported. So you can already, for example, Notion is a remote one. You can connect it like this. But for now, mostly pre-configured ones. So those that are actually in the catalog, you can use, even if they're remote.
Right. Okay.
We can also now see the actual demo result. Okay.
It's just real.
Oh no, we went
Too fast. Too fast. You probably need to increase the timeout somewhere in the code. Just say that like run it like for 10 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you can do remote. A lot of MCP servers are created, I know, with the sort of idea that their end users will be individuals with their particular data access rights. And there's this whole OAuth integration story for MCP servers. How does that work? Or I assume it's not too important for programmatically created tasks. Yeah, so how does it work?
Right now, OAuth doesn't work in the MCP gateway with E2B.
Right.
I think Docker has already some OAuth support for like 2 or 3 MCP servers, as far as I know, like a very little subset. But I do see that OAuth is very important, and that we will have to figure it out how also it fits into like the programmatic access use case.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can ignore it just because it's like a programmatic use case. Because in the end, this is like user data, and the user needs to give access to that. For now, it's just API keys.
Yes. So like in the Docker toolkit, there are some servers, like for example, GitHub, that you can configure with OAuth, right? You can also configure it with the usual token, which is much, much simpler and maybe offers you more control for the integrations.
Yeah.
Because in the OAuth case, you really need to have a user in the loop, as they need to review the OAuth consent screen. And like it makes no sense to show a consent screen if there is no end user present in the loop. You might as well go with the token and the predefined rights. So I honestly assume OAuth is not the most important feature for the programmatic use cases like this. But specifically with remote servers, most of them have some sort of OAuth.
I just realized that we have a sandbox kill in the demo, so it will never work. The 4th try.
See, this is an example how easy you can change your code that runs this integration, and how convenient it is to work with E2B sandboxes. That actually, if you think about it, it's quite a sophisticated piece of turtles all the way down. We run some JavaScript code, and it creates a virtual machine. And then inside that virtual machine, it runs Docker engine, I assume, because it needs to run containers. And it runs a container for MCP gateway, and it needs to run the containers for individual MCP servers. And all of that surprisingly works.
And at the same time, it's surprisingly fast.
No, it's actually pretty fast. Spinning up a container is fast. I assume you have a lot of effort put into optimizing the startup for the sandboxes, specifically because you mentioned the short-lived interactions with them as well. So this is all glorious and nice. Are there any plans to work on other programming languages to support in the API, or is JavaScript and Python sort of the largest chunk of the ecosystem that you are aiming at currently?
This is not really my field. Like I don't really work on the SDKs, but in AI right now, I think JavaScript and Python probably make up 99% of all use cases. I would love to see Go personally. And I know that some customers actually build their own SDKs for that.
Yeah. Do you have the sort of a REST API or something?
Yeah,
like
you
this?
can use the API, and
Yeah.
the SDK is open source, so you can also just like reverse engineer the SDK.
Right.
It's except for like the template system, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
So it would be fairly easy to, for the basic operations like creating a sandbox, you could just use the API.
This is an exercise for the curious watcher. Drop the script from the JavaScript SDK.
Also, the entire project is open source.
Yeah.
So there's also like the open API specs, for example.
Right. Can I run the backend myself on my premises, or?
Yes, you can.
Oh.
It's not super easy to self-host because it's quite a lot of stuff involved to make it work. So it's not like a Docker run and then I think it's just a log file now. Oh. Yes. Okay. So we got our vibe coded landing page here.
Well, that is quite awesome. So you get the summary and you get the information about the authors, and so the information about the authors, what was
that was using the
Go search engine.
Yeah.
This is awesome. This is very easy to use. I can automate those tasks. I can put them in GitHub Actions, and the only thing that I need to configure to get access to the sandbox, I just need the E2B API key.
Correct. Yeah.
And the npm library or like a Python library.
Yeah.
Okay, this is awesome. What is your favorite MCP server?
Oh,
the catalog, because you said that you're sort of parse the situation. Or what's your least favorite?
okay.
What is one that you hate with the most passion?
Okay, I need to think for that. I think my most favorite one is probably DuckDuckGo, because it doesn't need an API key, and I used it so much for testing.
Okay.
And it always works. Like I never had a case where, I mean, it's a very simple MCP server. There's one tool, but it does its job. So I love it.
Perfect for testing.
Yeah, it's a perfect, and I've probably used it like 1,000 times in the last week. The one I hate the most.
You don't have to answer. We don't have to go on camera with this. You can just tell me that it's Atlassian later.
Oh, actually, it's probably the ones that need the most configuration.
Yeah.
Where there could be same defaults. Like I don't have a specific one, but sometimes there's like you need 20 different fields you need to configure, but you actually only need 2. And I think that's a pain.
Yes, I think so. Which is actually, frankly, that is the case, I think, with the Atlassian MCP server that we have in the catalog, because you need to have the key for maybe Confluence and then Jira and some URLs for both of them and some additional configuration. It's not so easy from the, it's probably very convenient when you need to use it in anger in real life. But like if you need to create a demo, you kind of stumble on this, which is a minor use case. It's not actually like an actual complaint.
And sorry, the Docker Hub MCP server, I'm not just saying that because I'm a Docker captain, but I've used it a lot to find documentation about other Docker images.
Right.
It's really good because you get the true source of the documentation, and not if you use web search, you get a lot of wrong information, and on Docker Hub it's usually right.
So Docker Hub could be the source of information. Right. Very, very good. So how do people get started with E2B and maybe Docker MCP catalog on E2B Sandboxes? And where can they maybe meet the community and ask questions to how to use this integration? Where did they go?
So if you want to get started with E2B in general, there's a very generous free tier. And if you want to try out MCP, there's a quick start guide with TypeScript and Python snippets that you can run just like that. And we also have a lot of examples in our cookbook. So for example, if you want to run Claude Code or research agents or browser-based for web automation, we have a lot of examples for that.
Right.
And if you have questions, there's a E2B Discord that you can join. I think that should also be referenced somewhere on the E2B page.
Oh, I'm sure it's somewhere there. We're going to find it, and we're going to put the links into the description of the videos. So
the header.
No, thank you so much for joining us and explaining how it looks and what is E2B and how to use the sandboxes. It was a pleasure. Stay tuned for the next episodes, and please check out the E2B and Docker partnership and what you can do build running your agents securely in isolated sandboxes with enabled by default YOLO mode, which is a fun thing to say. Thank you so much. See you there.